Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. Today is Saturday, June 12th. June 13th, for those of you across the pond, welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you guys can join us this evening. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and I hope you guys had an awesome week and that the Mercury retrograde has not been messing up your stuff too badly. There have been so many horror stories around me about computers going down, lives falling apart, cell phones not working, as far as current days, that's the end of the world for a lot of people. But if you're listening live right now, you're listening live on Spreaker.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, as well as Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podcast Chaser. And we've also been picked up by KPNL.com, which you can find at kpnl-db.com. So tonight we have an awesome guest. It's Russell Wiitala, and he is a retired rural carrier for the post office. He's a solid expert skier and has spent thousands of days and hundreds of nights out in the wilderness hiking, backpacking, and camping. Wiitala is also the president of the local community theater in Raymond, Washington. He is a playwright, having written several plays and skits, including a musical based on the hauntings of their local playhouse. Music is a very important part of his life. He is mainly a guitar player. He is interested mostly in science, archaeology, and the metaphysical. And we also tonight have guest hosts and a friend of ours, Kevin Ian Beegle. And Kevin was born and raised in Ireland, was introduced early on that time as an intrinsic to linking ancient druidic ruins and the fabric of their ceremony. He would go on to pursue hidden schools of knowledge and would allow him to see and view the fabric of time in an extraordinary way. So we're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff tonight, but one of the main things is Russell's book, which is Sasquatch Shaman of the Woods, and the details interaction with highly metaphysical and mysterious beings who live as one with nature, otherwise known as Sasquatch. It also connects that interaction with the UFO phenomena and what may be a decades-old mission of reveal to the human race that they exist. These beings have guided the author to esoteric information, much of it already available in the public domain. This information has shown the author that ETs have been here for a long time and have subtle influence over our destiny as humans. They have also interacted with the guided others during this process. They have revealed that they utilize portals for transversing vast distances. These portals have a schedule and are located near vortex fields. They have shown the author that they can manipulate these lines of electromagnetic power. Wow, that's pretty interesting. Well, welcome Russell, and welcome Mr. Kevin. It's so awesome to have you guys in the house.
Well, thank you for having me. And Kevin, I had no idea you were going to be on this tonight. So it's good to hear your voice, buddy.
Well, I look at it like this, Russell. Even though it would seem like the things that we talk about are so different at times, these stories, and I'm interested to hear from your end how these will come across to understanding of ancient ideas as well as ideas that people hold now. And so some of the ideas that you're talking about are not new and they're not strange. However, people think they are, but I'll back you up a little bit on the old ways people used to think and the way that we can draw these things together eventually, hopefully. But I'll let you do it. I'll let you talk. I'll let you talk primarily because, and Tessa, you don't know this, but Russell and I have actually slept in the same bedroom, and Russell had to put up with me shouting in the middle of the night.
Oh, Wow.
Fear for my life. I was ready to spring out of there at any moment.
Right?
But I do know, it is nice to know Russell, and because he's a very genuine person, just like whenever I do, Tessa, you are a genuine human being, and it's nice, it's nice to be on a radio show again when two people like for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Ken. Great to know that here. Come in a little bit slower than that, because I talk about the only first. Stay a minute. When you think of Ireland, people there, electromagnetic fields, and
right, because it's true is that most is who lived on a long people who there, and so obviously progressed. You started to have to put up a structure to market, like stone circles and mines and things like that you find because of the fact that folks couldn't find it on their own.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Now, Adam Davies, he was in Africa with, I believe, the Bushmen, and he asked them, how do you find a village to be flat? There's no indication of what direction a village could be. Maybe you had something, but they said the villages on ley line, and the ley lines, and they pointing at the ground and said, "That ley line, can't you see it?" He's going,
"Yeah, very, very lively." To an African gentleman says he sees the well. And that was described to me as why they go one place to another. Indigenous people, Aboriginal in Australia, that they find that they can meet people across vast distances. Just their energy.
Sure. Regions. It's meeting.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Okay, so a little bit to prove to myself much telepathic. Now, I started off skeptical about all this stuff. Now I consider myself spiritual. I'm a knower. I've seen Sasquatch many times now, and had a lot of interaction. So when I first started to study telepathic friends, I remember once next to that road, and I look across the creek, and it's like, like a jungle there. I mean, it's all undisturbed, and I've had to thought myself, I think I right there, and I had that thought, so there were just several incidents like that made me think that maybe they were telepathic. So what I did was I ran a series of had 6 tests, and I'm going to tell you about it. The first 3, I did the same thing. I took just a stone that might get shot, a pretty colorful stone, and I went out in the woods randomly and hit your moss. And of course, I was careful to make note of where I hit it. And then I sent him a message. There's a stone right here. Okay, come get it. Well, I did that 3 times, and in areas, by the way. Altogether, 6 tests with 4 different groups of Sasquatch. So I've done that every time. So then I moved up and I asked for vocal one day. I was actually asking one Sasquatch and got a vocal from another one. So the other one probably wasn't there, and the one that vocal right away is the one that I eventually considered my teacher for quite a while, because he was guiding me this stuff. So that was another one. Another one, I had my friend Russell Wilson standing right next to me when I asked for a knock, got one immediately. And then my one was really the amazing one to me. I went skiing to White, and riding back, I knew there was an area that had a lot of stories, so I knew they were there. And so the hill to whim, I asked hey, could you maybe have something on the side of the highway the night? Oh, and I almost forgot about it. I really did. And I'm driving down through that area, and I look up and I see a track line going up to this little knoll. And there was, from the quake, we see, maybe 3 or 4 tracks at the most. But, they're right in line, or they're at the right distance. They look like Bigfoot crafts, And, wow, that one really, that one was really cool. And I didn't have a camera on me, so I couldn't take a picture of it. I didn't have time to attend to, so I just couldn't. So, yeah, they are definitely telepathic. And I got some more bizarre stories than that. For instance, I've had visitations in dreams. The first one I received was on my teacher. And that was a bizarre dream, because I saw this school bus at the end of this, turns around. It's very near where they hang out, And the school bus is turning around, and I see a Sasquatch walk behind a school bus. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's walking behind that school bus, and I'll bet nobody even knows, as the school bus is coming by. I look inside the school bus to see if anybody knows. And inside the school bus is his daughter. Come into WAPM.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And she was about 6 years old, just old enough to go to school. And the bus went by, and I walked up to him, and I shook his hand. He was smiling. I shook his hand, and his grip was so strong it woke me up.
Oh.
So, isn't that cool? Now,
yeah, that's awesome.
I really believe that was a visitation, not a dream. And I'll tell you why. I had another dream. And this dream, this happened because, generally speaking, I do not get frightened out there. But this one time, it was the first time of the year, and I was visiting my friends up in the Olympics, and the campground was almost deserted. There was like one couple, and I wasn't sure if they were still there, but they were in another loop, and they came into my loop, and they're like 100 yards away, and they start vocalizing to me, and then their cousin comes. So it's two of them. It's Peter, the ones I call Peter and Jock. They're vocalizing to me, and then here comes CC, and CC always kicks it up. And when he joins them, all of them, they're just like really loud. And it gave me a rush. I mean, I was like, wow. That's like...
It's adrenaline. Yeah, you get adrenaline.
Oh, wow. And they left. And so I told them in my head, I said, look, I want to get close to you guys. But, gee, I felt a little fear there. That's really unusual for me,
Mm-hmm.
And so then that night, when I was dreaming, I thought it was in my tent. I'll be sleeping. My hands come right through the tent and wrap around me. And I just got scared to death. And, that paralysis was there, so I could move. And I hear a voice, and he says, Russell, calm down. And the fear just drained right, I'm serious, it drained from the top of my head right out the tips of my toes.
Mm-hmm.
Could feel it go. And boom, it's gone. I'm calm, and I feel, just really comfortable. And he picks me up, and we face each other, and we talk for a little bit, telepathically. And then at the end, I said out loud, I said, gee, I just feel really fortunate to have you. And he started imitating a puppy dog and started kicking me and whining. You know how a puppy dog gets excited? It was so good. And it had laughing, and I wasn't even thinking at the time that it was weird until I woke up. And when I woke up, saw that, the three of them were singing to me from about 50 yards away up the hill and kind of harmonizing their voices. It was, so there, now, you might think, well, that was just a dream, the coincidence that they were singing, but I told a friend about this, and she does the same thing I do, only in the northern part of the Olympics. I'm down in the southern part. And she said that a friend of hers told her the exact same dream.
Yeah, I've actually had people tell me that also, that when they work, that they will harmonize and sing. And
oh no,
yeah,
I've heard that many times.
Yeah, and also, funnily enough, there are quite a few Sasquatch people. I mean by that, people look for Sasquatch, not Sasquatch people, but people who look for Sasquatch who report these very strange occurrences of feeling things come through the sides of a tent. And why? Those are the type of people who would never, ever, ever want that knowledge out there because they're fairly famous people, in the big thing. And although we look at this story of Sasquatch as if it would only be a biological creature, that's not necessarily what Native peoples think. Like I said, I taught on...
Not necessarily what I think, anyway.
Yeah, the thing is that I have taught on a reservation. That doesn't make me Native American of me. But I do know that in a tribe or a group of people, you respect your elders. If one tells you the story of a spiritual or metaphysical Sasquatch, you believe it. And if somebody tells you a story of a physical, you believe that too. So you do have multiple stories that come to believe. And people are inclined to believe whatever they choose to believe. However, we do need to honor the fact that both stories are being told. And what's interesting to me is that we, as a sort of quote unquote modern societal people, are so afraid of talking about things that be with standard Newtonian science or anything like that. Even though we can talk about things like quantum physics and metaphysics and all these different types of things.
That's a modern thing.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not
to know the origin of our denial system.
Yeah.
In the last 1,600 years, it came from Theodosius that when he made it illegal to believe in metaphysics, and anybody that admitted to seeing a ghost, well, you burn them at the stake, right? Well, that shuts it down pretty quick. And then, before you know it, the only people that believe are the ones who are experiencing it. And that's a small percentage.
Well, I was reading like the front of your book and so on, and you were talking about how you love to tell stories, and you're telling these stories to the kids in your family, and all the adults are either rolling their eyes at you or dismissive of it and telling the kids it's just a story. That's a certain stigma. It depends on how you were raised or whatnot, so there's that factor. But as you were talking about having these dreams, it's not just a dream. Like, you can tell the difference between a dream and what this actually is. This feels like another realm where you're connecting with another individual. It happened to me when my mother passed away. I had not a dream. That was my mother coming to me and communicating with me. And so the Sasquatch do as well, as you're saying. So that's pretty intriguing. Realms where there is communication that is not just a dream realm. Like, this is a physical realm. Like, you felt that Sasquatch licking your arm. Like, kind of creepy in a way, but it's interesting. Like, for that to happen.
Yeah, it's weird when I woke up and I just thought, wow, I can't believe that. Yeah. And of course, they were singing to me at the time, so it just made sense that, wow, this whole thing, that was the package, was the entertainment for them.
Well, what's interesting to me, Russell, is that, there's a world as East and West, and I tend to think of the world as northern, North and South. Whereas if you look at the stories of shaman people around the top of the world, we all believe in the same way of the king. And this sort of idea of the what we would call the Boone world, some people call walking in Ireland, some people would call it walking in two worlds, or whatever, that this idea of crossing through the veil is something that is not common to different cultures. If you look at Scandinavian people, or Native Americans, or Irish folk, or Mongolian people, shaman, they all believe this idea of entering into the middle world. They used to.
Well, oh no, many of them still do. Some of those tribes out there never were Christianized, so they still practice their old faith,
right?
To this day, and of course they are known as shamanistic. And I'm happy to know that piece of them in my genetics. I also have a piece of Dunedin in my genetics, which I think is from southern Siberia. That's where they hung out, and that's precisely where the word shaman was created, which essentially means someone who has knowledge of metaphysical things and interacts with metaphysical beings. I think that, there's slightly different,
there's
about what shaman is. Some are healers, but they all kind of share that metaphysical connection.
Absolutely, and the thing that I think is funny and what's interesting about it is that as a person who studied shamanism around the world, let's put it that way, it's not that different from quantum mechanics and physics. I mean, if you look at it, these people were speaking in metaphysical terms, or quantum mechanics, or quantum, realms.
Yes.
And we got back. Now we're coming back to that way of thinking in the theoretical. So,
well, to me, I'm not a quantum physics fan. I'm more of a field theory fan. I see the whole universe as magnetic, and what's going on throughout the universe is magnetization. And the friend I was talking to today happened to tell me a theory that she had about why everything sort of exploded, in the 40s, and she said it was because of atomic bombs releasing that magnetic energy, messing with the order of the universe, in a sense. And when you think about it, think of the universe as a plane, and you throw a rock into it. You know what I mean? And those waves will go everywhere. And that's when we started to have a great uptick of UFO visitations and other things.
Have you noticed we've had that recently too? Oh my gosh, I don't want to call it a mothership. It was very big. That was not as big as I would imagine a mothership would be. Like, I don't think a mothership could come into our atmosphere. It would be out in space, while the larger ship, that's like a carrier or something, would bring the other little tiny ships. But yeah, we saw a pretty big a UFO, basically, a disc.
Yeah, I saw one morning. I'm trying to think how long ago that was. That was about a year ago. Oh, that was over a year ago, because that's what prompted me to by my video camera. I was in my kitchen, and I'm washing my cup, and I look out, and I see these flashing lights. And they're red, green, and white. Oh, and I guess they were, I can't remember the one. Red and green, anyway. And I'm looking at that, and well, those are navigation lights. You know, I have a pilot's license.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that was an aircraft, but then I realized when I took the binoculars and looked that I was just sitting there because I got suspicious. It was just sitting there, and it had like the lights were in the middle of it, and the wings went out both ways. You know, this it was a huge disc, and so I ran and grabbed my phone because I was going to get some video of it. That's all I had, you know, and I ran outside and it was gone.
Yeah, we gotta. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, Riley, I don't know if you know where Tessa lives, but she lives in the Four Corners area, and that, like, you know, I think it's a thing. Yeah, well, we in Washington see a ton of UFOs, and where she is the history of, you know, the kind of mother. I mean, she lives not very far away from Aztec and the places like that, or you know, all these different places. So,
like 5 minutes with reach everything.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy. I didn't know. I mean, whenever I went to visit Tessa with my wife, it was like, oh, well, the shock. There's this place. I'm like, oh my god! It's like she's like right in the center of it. You know?
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how things are regional?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like you said, we were like ley lines and stuff. Like, don't you see it? No, I don't see it. But they do exist, and it's so amazing, like how intricate and interesting they are, and where the line and everything, like how massive activity is. No matter if it's paranormal or UFO or alien or supernatural, like it's just a plethora of things.
Yeah. I like stuff. But anyway, I want to explain how they told me, or they showed me. They actually did me to my house 37 years ago, and of course I was not aware of that until about 2 years ago. I'd say 3 years ago, maybe. And what happened first was Sasquatch up in the Olympics were guiding me up to an area. And the way they did that was they'd make, you know, tree breaks and show me way, you know. And I kind of understood. Sort of with my training wheels, you know, they were guiding me here and guiding me there, and then they finally guided me up a long ways up into the Olympics. And when I got there, this is what's funny. There was a road crew working on that road way up there. I mean, it's just way up there, and they had taken it away. And I know they could hear these guys. My three friends, Jacques, Peter, and CC came and started talking to me, and I could tell they were really excited. And I thought, yeah, sounds crazy. You've been trying to guide me to. I didn't really think about it being a vortex, right? But I had this number 327 that kept coming to me, and in fact, one time that I realized that, you know, this is something. This is about something. The 327 is when I was checking in. The first time I went to Sasquatch at Ocean Shores, and they were, you know, full up. But I thought, well, maybe someone canceled the reservation. I go up to the deck. The lady's on the phone. I wait for her to get off the phone. I said, has anybody canceled? And she says, yes. I just got one on the phone, and she gave the number of people. And I must have stared at that for 30 seconds. You know,
yeah, you're in shock.
Oh, man.
Trying to process. You're like, okay, wait a minute.
And I knew it meant something. So later, I meet Joe Hauser, who owns the Montana Vortex and has a history up in Montana, and I feel compelled to go visit. And so it took me actually over a year to get the opportunity to go, but I did go, and I just had like 2 days. I just drove like hell up there and spent a whole day and night at Vortex. He actually let me, the only person ever have been allowed to pitch my tent inside the Vortex field itself, which I don't know if anything happened because I was so tired. I felt like to sleep. But I did put a recorder out, and there was a lot of activity, doors opening and closing, and you know, shuffling around and stuff. But the highway noise was so loud there, I dumped recording. But anyway, as I left, maybe I'll tell you about some of the things that happened at night. Because when I got there, the first thing that happened in the afternoon, I was sitting in there talking to Tammy, Joe's wife, and Joe had gone to help Nick put a new propane on his trailer. And so I'm in there talking to Tammy, and and the sliding glass door opens and closes by itself. It was around the corner, so we couldn't quite see it, but I heard it, and I was just thinking, Joe, And she looks at me and she says, Joe's not here. And I jumped up and ran around the corner, and sure enough, there was nothing there. Went outside on the deck and looked around. Yep. Anyway, that was the first thing that happened. So later that night, when they closed the place, then at night, when it got dark, Joe and I went out, and there were unattached shadows and from across the highway, and we're seeing orbs up on Columbia Mountain, or Mount Columbia, where that mountain is across the highway there. This is in Columbia Falls, Montana, by the way. And then, let's see, we heard a Sasquatch exhale right behind us. We're in the house and see. And of course, it's the
That'd be so creepy.
Didn't bother me at all. I didn't even say anything. Joe looked at me. Did you hear that? Yeah. And then he did take some pictures, but his camera, which often happens there, the battery went dead right away. But he did catch a couple, well, more than a couple. There was a bunch of orbs and like a ectoplasm above me when I was in what they call the labyrinth. They actually wanted him to take me to the labyrinth, so I went to the labyrinth and it's an experience. Hearing those doors open and close, and oh my gosh, it was. So that is interdimensional beings that are able to cross the veil, and interact with our 3D world, is what's going on there. And the reason why it happens, of course, is because it's a very strong vortex field. In fact, it's the strongest one in North America, as far as anyone knows, anyway.
Right, and I think that because I know Joe too, and he's very, very knowledgeable. He's a great person to talk to. A lot of times these vortices, are often thought of sort of roadside traps. There's the carnival arts, and whenever you go to an actual location that has these types of things, sometimes I know you can measure them on circle. It's on measure, and taken right there, you can see which way the magnetism is going. So, thing that scientifically they did that in the handset, Carnassus, etc. as well. So if you go to distance, you can't, feel that, and a lot of times people. So I'm a advocate, but yes, I will say, well, that is the magnetism your friends or how they.
But what's that? Anyone knows the had an with Nelson, who has studied vortex Halloween. Anyway, to have the strongest marcation line around that vortex. That's kind of limit, or maybe the limit. But anyway, it's 216 feet. And the other thing about this, I'm going to mention, by the way, you notice I'm talking feet, miles, and not metrics.
Yeah, that's what we wish their standards.
Yeah, in miles and feet, and that methodology, they follow me back to ancient Egypt. Where did they come? About came down and taught them that. That's what they did. So anyway, so I got home and I felt compelled to take out a map. Pilot. I took out a chart first. An old chart from aviation days. And it didn't work well enough. So then I went on Google Earth, and I measured the distance to that Olympic vortex that they guided me to up in Olympics, and it turned out to be 451 miles. But there was also another vortex, a Seattle vortex, that Nelson had charted, and it was 57 miles from that vortex. We'll take 57, and, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, don't take that. Don't worry about that. Okay, well, take 57 and double it, 14. Well, if I look at the angle from the Olympic vortex to the Montana vortex and then down to my house, that's my point I'm trying to get to. It's also 57 miles, and the angle is 114. Well, 57 miles plus 57 miles is 114. And there's some other crazy stuff. Joel, our mutual friend Joel Smith, bought that camp.
Yeah.
Well, I look at that map, and it lies precisely 36 miles from my house.
Wow.
36 plus 66 is 72. Mm-hmm. Now you know where I'm going. This is just nuts. 72 plus 7 is 144, and that, of course, is the 12th iteration in the Fibonacci sequence. But all these things are connected in so many ways that, obviously, it was obvious to me to the house. And for in 2007.
Right.
So they guided me to my house in the early 80s. But a lady they got me that has a carving of a saucer and some plants and a mysterious figure that's with it's like a of light because it has rays coming out from it. Some of it. So guided that. I had exchanged dream about a prime mass type in my room, and just some other things along the way.
So interesting. Not we're just talking that how like they're hybrids or they're aliens, or I always refer to myself as a mutant. We were about this. We believe there's a few aliens as practice.
Like, yeah. Like, in that dream, I told my mom to in the dream. Later, sister in that book, there was my alien mom. So scared of with a kid, in the front yard, avoiding which there was nothing. He's like kind of angry or that. And I'm I until the late 80s. And what was the vetting process? That's what I wonder. With the chose Earth, is this something that they cared for?
I thought I never had this. Say after these experiences in life. For example, 150 years ago, they were dealing with fairies. I use the word fairies anymore because that's clearly not the way that it is. But
they really something else.
Well, if you think about it, the idea of a fairy being very Disney type things, not the way a traditional folklore would say, act with fairy. Well, fairies can abduct you, they come to your children, well, it's an abduction. You come in 5 days, or you're all these things. So I think what happened, these things were both that hadn't gone for a while. It was chosen whether it's like in a past life that you read to serious life. It's on the fact that it's happened, right? You don't really matter why. It's just and what I'm interested in is, do you feel you're really good, man?
Yeah, I look in real well.
Yeah.
I have a paddle, and I got a feel that the coach told me to Pernussi, they felt they could work with. And obviously, they picked someone who was extremely objective.
Right.
Like that, they have everything. I've proven it.
I think that's an interesting point to make, too, as a person who teach. A lot of kids will say, I'm really bad, and they actually are very, very excellent. In other words, but the idea of writing 2 + 2 = 4 is just so different that it bores them to tears. Whereas, if you look at, say, for example, Haida artwork and bios and develop a person, and you get in a ratio standpoint when they're looking at their art. And it's very, very artistically appropriate.
We have innate in us. Yeah. Write music, heard it. And of course, that's mathematical. All mathematical.
Right.
Everything in the world that happens can be accessed mathematically.
Right. And I think that's an interesting point to make, because if you realize that the universal language is math, that if we were to be contacted by aliens, it would be through a mathematical equation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And not.
Yeah. I'm just about to go through some of them. Yeah.
One thing over here is my head thing. I said there'd be math. I'm just kidding. No, there's math everywhere. I believe that as well.
Well, this is a string. Yeah, the 3, 2, 7 right off the bat.
Right.
And if someone asked me what my number was, I could tell them. It seems to always show up in my life in a different way. And it's just is the Demar vortex. If you look at the 3 vortex fields, the west you got in Gold Hill, and then you got 2 more, and I can't, I'm not sure where they're at. I can't think of where they're at, but one of them, East Center, down the way. That's another 216-foot demarcation line around. But what's really strange is if you look on a map, they form Orion's belt, and they're also 216 miles away from each other. All these vortexes were found individually and turned into a commercial enterprise by people who didn't really know each other. They found these, vortex fields individually. It wasn't like one guy. They weren't created, by a human or, let's put a vortex field here. They didn't do that. So it's mighty strange.
Yeah, and it's interesting how there have been vortices in the past in certain areas, and supposedly like places like Sedona and other places like that have vortices where people go to try to cleanse and do other things. Some people have visited there. It's polluted it, just like our waterways and other things like that. Do you see that happening as well, or?
Well, I don't really go to those commercial vortexes. you know, where I go is Sasquatch guides me, and I camp out. And I could tell you about, you know, the latest thing that happened. It was on the 4th of May. Let the 4th be with you. So that went out. I went out. It was a great day. It was just a wonderful day. You know, crystal clear, very calm. I camped out in a place where they've been trying to guide me there almost for 2 years, and I just couldn't quite find that spot until just recently. And what I found were a couple structures, and one was in the campsite itself. There's a structure that looked like a dome tent made out of twigs, right? I'm thinking that the juveniles saw the hunters there and that they had a dome tent. They could imitate it. Further down the road, about 400 yards or so, there was also off the road in the woods. There was also a teepee erected using one tree growing out of the ground and then leaning other trees up against it. Mm-hmm. And then what was really interesting about that is they kind of cleared out all the twigs and stuff from around the teepee and stuck them in the teepee. I don't, well, a lot of times they're just playing, just like kids.
They're like, we got to camouflage this. This is standing out so bad.
Maybe. Boy, it stuck out like a sore thumb to me, though.
Right?
But, yeah, I know loggers go by this stuff. I mean, I know where trees are jammed upside down. They're probably taking some longer than that.
I know, I've heard about that. There's also a place called the Upside Down Forest, but I'm going back to vortices and such. I think people don't think about the fact that there have been earthquakes and our axes have tilted, so maybe certain places that were a landmark before really aren't anymore, or vortices and such have kind of shifted. Not a lot, but a small percentage, where if you go to a direct where it was before, it's not going to be there. You got to kind of look around for it or feel for it.
Actually though, I'm not sure if that's true. These vortex fields on the West Coast, for instance, they've been in the same spot for a long time. It all seems like the land can morph to the vortexes itself. Because if you look at, for instance, Gold Hill vortex, if you look at that vortex, you can see the river right by it do a flip. That's like it's like the same river or the same bends, only flipped over, a mirror image of that river, farther down the river. Well, obviously, to me, it seems that vortex field has warped, the land itself. But
well, yeah, I don't know if you've heard, but there's twisted trees sometimes. Like, trees are twisted and different stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, you see those at the Montana vortex. They're all twisted in one direction, around in a circle.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it goes in the Montana vortex field circulates in a counterclockwise direction. And some people can feel that. And I thought I felt it when I was there, but, I kept my mouth shut because I wasn't sure. Because Joe did ask people, do you feel it? What direction do you think it's going in? Well,
I think that has something to do with the magnetism of the Earth, though. I mean, whenever you deal with vortices, I'm going to give a little bit of a secret out about certain things in the northern hemisphere when you're talking about measuring stones. They were constructed in a way so that they would go counterclockwise. If you measure the Avebury stones or Stonehenge, there is a magnetic pull on each one, and it is directed so the energy is supposed to go in counterclockwise direction. And so, whereas on the southern hemisphere, the opposite, just like every toilet goes one way north, and then when you pass to the other side of the equator, it goes the other way. Not a lot of people realize that.
Well, that's interesting. You know what I think causes a vortex? I think they buried magnets down there. And above the ground, you're on the north negative end of the magnet. That's why it's going counterclockwise. And it's also far north, it is a little striking on north end. But, talk about magnets, which is interesting. You take two magnets, and they call them being attracted to each other, right? Well, once you put two magnets together, it forms another magnet, one magnet. And it'll have that demarcation line, that inertial field line in the middle between the North and South Pole. And that field right there has no space. That is space. That is the E that permeates the inside out entanglement. And I believe that is how portals work. So just entangling two electrons, for instance, in here and one on another planet far away, they have enough of them all aligned, polarized, if you will, creating a vortex right on that demarcation line. And it depends on the power of vortex fields, and that varies. And it also has a schedule. Nick Nelson, imagine, wrote the book, The Vortex, and he talks about the schedule, how they have schedules. Well, you think about where it's going. Well, that schedule might be a little different because their planet have different sizes. And so maybe the gear there, you want to think of it in that term, goes at a different speed. And so eventually those two gears match up. And when they match up, boom, the vortex opens. Theory.
It's pretty, it's awesome and serious in time. Sometimes it opens up those houses and they're like, well, what the crap's not here? And then people go investigate. I want to talk more about this, but on this note, we do have to go to the first musical break. For those of you listening, this break is going to be 14 minutes and 20 seconds long. And we have Gravity from Krakow, Poland with Throw You Away. We also have Fred Johnson from California with Sugar. An example with Carolyn Giles, Dance Meeting, and again with Take On My Shoe. Guys, we'll be right back after this musical break.
without you. The tension's overbearing. Wondering, are you coming back home again? To inspire fondness with love. Where did our love go wrong? My sugar. Why did I make you cry? Whispers flow through my mind when I think about you. That warm feeling in me. My heart sings a sad song and just melts away. Please look into my eyes, my sugar. There's life in out there. Until the sun doesn't shine anymore, I'll be there. When time is a memory, I'll know this love. You will always be the one, my sugar. The feeling is so strong. Waiting here on this cold, lonely night without you. Where did our love go wrong, my sugar?
Just got home, showered, show called Step, Step, Step. Baby, follow my lead. You and me showing off for the club to see. No time to get rest. We doing our thing. Cha-cha, then we dip, top it off with a spin. Glide across the floor. Let's do it again. By the way, little mama, can we be friends? I can't let this night just end. I really wanna know if I can see you again. Give me your number, we'll get back on the scene. We can hit another club if that's your thing. We'll be partners in crime, you and me, as we ripping up floors like two dancing machines.
Down the street, thinking all the things you said you need. Well, don't you tell me, baby, how do you feel? So I walk down the street, thinking all the things you said you need. Well, don't you tell me, baby, how do you feel? Don't you take a walk? Well, don't you take a walk? In my shoes, why don't you take a walk? Before you tell me what to do, don't you take a walk? Don't you take a walk? In my shoes, why don't you take a walk? Before you tell me what to do. No, it's easy. You tell me what to do. Have you ever stopped to think all the things that I've been through? No, it's easy. You tell me what to do. Have you ever stopped to think all the things that I've been through? Don't you take a walk? Don't you take a walk? In my shoes, don't you, baby, take a walk? Before you tell me what to do. Don't you take a walk? Don't you take a walk? In my shoes, don't you, baby, take a walk? Before you tell me what to do.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we're joined by Mr. Russell Wiitala. We're also joined by Mr. Kevin Ian McFly. I'm just kidding. You guys, welcome back. And thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox. Yeah, it's been on, and even on break. I don't know. I think some of the stuff that we talk about is on break. So I feel bad for everybody else out there.
Some of it, if I may.
Well, that's because, Tessa, that's when you let your hair down and you go completely nuts. I mean, let's just face it. Whenever When we're on break, Tess is all over the joint.
Right?
You were just mentioning, about recently, the eclipse and the veil kind of thinning a little bit, and it certainly thinned at my home. And I did experience, an outage of the TV that was inexplicable for a few hours, actually. Not that I'm, care that much about TV, but I do about baseball, and that's when it cut out on me.
Right? The important times when you really want to watch it, it's gone.
Yeah, that's part. I'm going to do some more exploration of baseball. Baseball has 369 all over it.
Damn, that's fine. Yeah.
If you think about it, I just wonder about who created the rules and stuff, the distances, most importantly. And it's supposed to be some banker, some guy that worked as a bank clerk that came up with these things. But I'd really like to learn more about that, because to me, I almost see baseball as a sacred sport. It's the one where they compete, but yet, if you watch them out on the field, someone gets a double, the opponent might come over and congratulate them, nice hit, and they're nice and friendly, and it's really turned into a very, very pleasant game to watch more. No
well,
balls,
and it's one of the originals, right? Like, baseball was one of the original sports in America. Baseball, football.
Oh, yeah, it's been around.
I'm pretty
for
sure
a long
baseball
time.
was right. I don't know.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It was way first. It was early 1800s when it first started emerging, and they had a professional baseball. They had professional baseball soon after the Civil War. It wasn't very long. So and it's been around for a long time, like 150 years, almost, I think. So I just want to look at that because of the numbers. It just intrigues me so much. Those are magic numbers.
Yeah, reportedly. Well, I mean, obviously 3 is a magical number around the world, and there's not too many cultures that don't have reverence for 3. But obviously 6 and 9 being the 3. But Tesla said that 3, 6, and 9 supposedly, was the most important numbers in the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said if you understand 3, 6, and 9, you understand the universe.
Mm-hmm. And I understand baseball, so that's why I said.
I understand baseball to you, but I can't completely explain 3, 6, 9 to you.
Yeah.
That's a little more complicated.
I think it's kind of like, okay, so when I see 6 and 9 in my identity for some reason, it just all goes to itself. I don't know, it just seems like infinity to me. That's what I see in my head is infinity.
Well, to me, 3, 6, 9 almost represents our 3D world.
Mm-hmm.
And 7 is a strange number. And that kind of represents the other side. The Greeks, for instance, considered pi 3 and 1/7.
Oh, I love pi.
Well, pi creates, 3. After that 3, you have an irrational number, a sequence of numbers that repeats itself over and over and over again. I'm trying to find the sequence right now. It's 1, 4. It's 1. What is it?
Isn't it 3.14 something?
3.14159.
Yeah.
The pi itself, but behind the dot.
Behind the pi.
Behind 3 point. Yeah. Then it turns into a sequence that just repeats itself over and over again.
I don't know. My head just exploded. So.
Not with pi. Not with pi. But if you take 7 and you I'm sorry, I messed up. If you take 7 and you divide it in any number that is not a multiple of 7, you come up with the same sequence. And so that's the relationship, what I'm talking about. And the sequence is, it depends on what you divide 7 into, and what it starts, but it eventually falls into a sequence of 7, 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7. Yeah. So it's 1, 4, 2, 8, 5. Is that it? I gotta look at.
Yeah, when you say 7, I see infinity again. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the middle.
That's our man, and that's the other side, which is really weird.
3, 7, and 13 are very same numbers.
Of course, 13, that's a double-digit number.
Yeah.
And, we want to
there's a
talk
lot
about
of
all
things.
this
Yeah, you
thing.
gotta
A
have
lot
a
of people don't like that. But,
yeah. 6.5 doublets.
I think this is interesting, though. Take a distance between the minor vortex and the vortex I was guided to up in Olympics. You divide that distance with 441 miles, and then you divide that 3/7 of it, come up 144,207. But that's very close to 144, you know. And a lot of these things that it guided me to is kind of like really close, but not quite. Because just imagine what a headache it would be to set up all this stuff. The vortex up in Montana, you know, the vortex up in the Olympics, and then guide me to the house that works as far as the proportions go, and so on and so forth. It's crazy nuts. All the detail. They're very intricate. Some of these things. It's so intricate I won't even bother talking about because no listener is going to understand them.
So when you're being pulled to this, do you listen to your mind or do you listen to your gut?
I listen to both of them. My mind first, but my gut to finish it off, I think. Because, and I know I get some help from them, you know, obviously. Obviously, they can send me a number, for instance. You know what I mean? I get feelings. You know, I knew there was something important up there in the Olympics. I didn't know it, but I knew that there was a guide me somewhere. You know, and that more than the the limb breaks that they left me that I understood as a message. It was almost as if I kind of knew where to go. You know what I mean? So it's a combination. It's a combination of things. I get starts off with an objective thing, and then moves onto the feeling thing.
Okay, and so when you follow these things, does it give you more information towards the answer you're looking for?
Yes, and it keeps. Well, I don't know about in a way. I mean, they're I got a curiosity itch, and they're scratching it for me. And they know that I want to learn this, so they're trying to help me. We were talking about 216, how that connects so many things in this universe. Perhaps that, for instance, the age of Aquarius is going to last 160 years.
Great.
216. You just take off a zero. Zeros don't count. Multiply that by 12, and you come up with 25,920, which is the number of years it takes for the Earth to wobble on its axis on a complete 360 degree. And that angle of of the Earth's axis is 23.5 degrees. You multiply that by 2 and you get 27. It takes 72 years for the Earth to advance 1 degree. So there's that 72. That shows up over and over again too. So it takes, of course, that's a multiple of 25,920. 72, because 72. That's okay. That's never mind. But anyway, I get confused because there's so much of this,
Yeah.
But the 216, that's the one thing. It's everywhere. It's just everywhere. The moon, for instance, is 2,160 miles wide. Just a little bit shy of that, but it might have shrunk a little over the eons. The sun, if you take that number 216, multiply it by 4, you come up 864. You add 3 zeros to that, and you've got the sun's diameter. It's just crazy. All these things that are connected with the vortexes, the 216 everywhere, and so on and so forth. I just got to. It just gives you that this solar system was at least arranged, but probably created in a way. And who's the creator? Well, I'm not going to define that creator. I know that creator exists. I'm not smart enough to know that much about the creator. I'm not going to.
I'm sorry to step on your Russell, but I mean, I think that part of the thing that people don't realize is that the numbers in the solar system are so perfectly aligned that the chances of it happening are astronomical.
Yeah. Exactly. You're talking about on the micro level.
Right.
Yeah.
The fact that that an eclipse can happen where the diameter of the sun, the diameter of the moon can perfectly blot out the diameter of the sun.
Yeah.
So you can
And
see
after
no
that, when you're
effect
done.
and we're that it's that far away and everything like that. That's just astronomical in the fact that it just could happen that way.
That's right.
And so
the moon is moving away from the Earth, so eventually it's not going to happen anymore. You'll be able to see the edge of the sun.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome because this month we not only had a lunar eclipse, we had a solar eclipse, we had so many things happening in one month. Like, when does that ever happen, where you have a lunar eclipse and all of a sudden you have a solar eclipse? Like, never that together. There's been Mercury retrograde, we're talking about on breaks, different things, and things messing up. And then there's also solar flares happening. Like, it's just a congenial thing of all sorts of things. It's like a cocktail.
Right. It's that if this is the time, isn't it?
Well, I think you talked about the dawning of the age of Aquarius. No, I'm not an astro whatever. Astrologer. But isn't that now?
Yeah.
I mean, aren't we supposed to be? Isn't that supposed to be now in times where we're supposed to be? This is entering into this age. Or?
Yeah, this is like the great insight. Here we are.
I believe this thing is orchestrated. Just the way my life has gone, and the urgency. I mentioned to Kevin that I received in February of 2020. One was finish your book. Got that 3 times, and I'll explain how I do that. And the other one was courage. Well, that meant just a convention, and then I start to talk to these sensitives. And to tell you the truth, I know a couple legitimate sensitives. For instance, Tamara, is one for sure. But I just go and ask them. I give them the minimum information. I'll have a gift, for instance, that I get from Sasquatch, and I'll take it to them and I'll put it in their hands, and I'll listen to what they say. And I know that whether they're legitimate or not, because I have a feeling one of those people I talked to was not legitimate. But I still got the right message. Finish your book.
Have courage. Finish your book. Have courage. Finish your book.
Talked to 3 people, got the same message. And, of course, there's a bunch of other stuff in there, but that popped up, and I noticed it.
And I think that I think that this is an interesting thing for me, as an Irish person, because when I was ever told that to talk to the spirit world, that it always came in 3s, that you said it in 3s. In other words, for example, that you had to say no, no, no. You had to say no 3 times to an entity that you didn't want to do something. And it's the same thing as just clarifying it, that you say this intentionally 3 times. Now, it's interesting because even in old English law, that's truism. That whenever you were sentenced to be hung by the neck, they said until dead.
Wow.
You see, so it's almost a clarification. Yeah, exactly. It's you can look at it any way you want to, but it's a way of enforcing the fact that we're using the number 3.
Mm-hmm.
That is your intention.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. I've never thought of that before. Really say it 3 times. Say it once. Say it 3 times, and it kind of makes me think, wow, that's why I have to repeat myself to kids all the time. Now I know.
Anyway.
Right? No, but with spiritual entities and things that plague and such, like, that's important to remember. Say it 3 times. Say it with intent. Say it with, your full-fledged intent. Your whole belief system.
Well, I think it's an interesting thing because, obviously Celtic people, a lot of people say, well, how come Christianity spread so well across Europe? And a lot of times it was because Celtic people believed in 3s, and time as a 3. Mm-hmm. And so to take it as past, present, future, and make that into, Son, Father, and Holy Ghost is not a stretch,
No.
And so therefore it's a continuation on of the same idea of the importance of three, the Trinity, of doing that.
I got something to say about that. You got a magnet. There's three parts to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's two poles and then middle. So there's three there. And if you think about it, and this is the way I look at the Ankh, because all this leads to Egypt for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
There's a Egyptian connection to all this, and that's what I'm really trying to figure out in the end is what was the Great Pyramid for. And
it's a power source.
I think that the Ankh represents a magnet in a sense. So you got one end, which is the circle, the rounded thing. Well, that's the bending of the fields, right? Back into, and then you got the bar. The bar represents the inertial plane, and then you got the handle. And the handle, a human holds, because a human is essentially electromagnetic.
Yeah, power source.
They are a vortex field in themselves,
mm-hmm.
and that's the way I look at Ankh. Just my own interpretation.
That's
right,
cool.
and it is interesting to note that in when you're talking about ancient people knowing about the Baghdad battery, for example, and the fact that those things happen in Egypt and obviously in modern day Iraq,
mm-hmm.
that's not a new thing either. That they understood the basics of at least using a battery for electroplating.
Parts, by the way.
Yeah, right. And so, but you see, this is the thing where we tend not to agree with that. And obviously, a lot of people make the connection that the very first story of Sasquatch was the very first story ever written, which is the idea of Gilgamesh. The Gilgamesh and the Sasquatch.
Well, there were so many different tribes of humans back in the day, and we all killed each other off till there was just a couple or maybe even a few left, because I know not all Sasquatch look the same. We might have 4 different variations of humans on Earth. Like there are distant cousins from the past,
right. But it was interesting to see how
they're very closely related to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's why we can communicate.
I was going to say that Enkidu as a character was not thought of as a man. He was thought of as part of nature until they made him into a human. I won't say how, but
wasn't
anyway.
he supposed to be hairy?
Yeah, he was a hairy. He was a part of the. Yeah. No, like Enkidu in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the first written story, in Sumerian times. But anyway, so
this is my question. We got all these ancient stories, Sumerian, Egyptian, Mayan, pretty much saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We got our information or our knowledge on mathematics from above. Why don't we take them seriously?
I think it's a human condition.
Well, I think we did. I think we have to realize that the quote unquote Age of Enlightenment has been misrepresented to us in a way that shows that that science and religion were supposed to fight each other. That basically we believe, for example, that Isaac Newton was the ultimate scientist. Maybe he was, but he was also an alchemist, and he had the same amount of alchemical text as he did sort of theses of other things. And so these people were still trying to figure out this sort of religious aspect, the supernatural aspect. One of the things that's interesting to me about it, and my personal connection with that, is that my great ancestor was the president of the Royal Society after Isaac Newton, and and he had the same amount of, like, for example, he had books on all kinds of scientists, but he also had John Dee's texts that he took to, around the thing. So, that the fact that they make it sound like scientists were not interested in this sort of esoteric sense of the thing is a total miscommunication on purpose to us.
Yeah. And gold, when you talk about alchemy, Newton trying to turn lead, I suppose, into gold. They're atomically really close together as far as their weight. Gold, to me, now the number is 79. That's its atomic number. And you add them together, and you come up with 16. You add 1, 6, and you get 7. Now, the interesting thing about gold is it will lose 2% of weight under certain circumstances, under certain times in the Oregon text. I know that because originally that was a gold mine, and they figured out after the building flipped and they couldn't weigh gold anymore, they moved the same gold outside and waited to realize that they were going to sell at a 2% income.
Right. Well, I think that a lot of people don't realize that gold always comes with quartz. Quartz, of course, is a very, very energetic material.
Oh, yeah. Easy electric.
Yeah, and also people don't realize that due to gravity fluctuations around the world, gravity is not necessarily constant, no matter where you go. And
that's
so...
right. That means time changes, by the way.
Right.
Oh, yes.
So this is... Yeah.
Yeah, within the Montana vortex, it's 2 seconds slower within the Montana vortex than it is outside. They've done many checks on this with very precise stopwatches, and they might have even done an atomic clock. I'm not sure on that, but anyway, that's what they came up with. 2 seconds.
Yeah, and that's the thing where, of course, that is an idea that we're going to question because of the fact that, Newtonian science is there are very, very few laws that we can actually say are laws anymore. Obviously, that's one of those things where gravity is a law. The law of gravity is a law, but the amount of gravity is a difference, you see. And that's one of those things where it throws everything into question, and you are not going to be able to fight academia. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do in some ways. And so because people, I've made the point to people about that recently, that the last time anybody did anything with science was in the 12th grade, and that was from a book that was really old to begin with. Yeah. And science changes on a daily basis.
The winners write the books.
I remember when Pluto was a planet.
Yeah. Right? I felt so sad when they said it was no longer a planet. I'm like, why do you have to be mean to Pluto? I love that planet.
I know.
Dude, leave him alone. He's a small guy, and you guys are picking on him.
I agree.
I say leave him out in the cold.
Aww.
You see that? Yeah, everybody says. No, but it's an interesting thing where facts change and these different types of things, and we wouldn't know. Like for example, people don't understand the Large Hadron Collider and what it does. And people don't understand that you can teleport protons into space, and we've done
now
it.
You're opening a book right now.
Well, yeah, but you see, but this is
and then entanglement too.
Right. Right. That you can prove that. You can prove statistically that portals exist.
Mm-hmm.
NASA did that with the X portals, and you can prove that teleportation exists, and yet at the same time,
they don't believe any of our stuff.
Well, to be honest with you, we would have to provide proof. I do tell stories, and I can't
Sure.
prove, so it's an anecdotal story. Whether you choose
Sure.
to believe me or not is up to you. But don't tell me it's not possible.
No,
Yeah.
anything's
That's why I
possible.
like the numbers that they guided me to, because
Yeah.
you can't mess with numbers.
Exactly.
This is an interesting thing. You can take, and because water is connected to all this. This is the way I see it. Water is very
Water
important.
is life.
Water is life, and I when I have a drink in the evening, non-alcohol, I put ice in it, or whenever I have a drink, I put ice in it. It
Yeah.
could be alcoholic. I still put the ice in it, but when I fill the tray, the ice tray, I always project healing to the ice tray, and
nice.
and I thank the water for what it provided me. I wouldn't exist without water.
That's cool.
Before I put it in the freezer. Now, if you take water, has 3 states: solid, gas, and liquid. Well, magnetism has the same thing, and we'll get to that because it has, and I'll explain how this works. It has 3 states. There's gravity, there's electricity, and there's magnetism. Anyway, if you take a frozen snowflake, it's got 6 points on it. They always have 6 points. Well, take 2 sections, because it's kind of divided like a pie, right? You got six pies in there, in that little snowflake. We'll take a couple of them out, then put the other 4 together, and what you end up with is a structure that has the same proportions as the Great Pyramid, with a 51.5-degree slope going down the edge, on the face. Is that wild or what?
That is.
Now, how did they figure that out? And guess what? There's not a lot of slope in Egypt, ever.
It actually did snow there not too long ago, and then what you were saying with the Great Pyramid, it used to top with a gold top, and would they find it in the Great Sphinx? Did you know that the Sphinx was actually much older than they originally said it was? It's like millions and millions of years old. Like, this thing has been around forever, and that's where they found the top of the Great Pyramid, and the thing is humongous.
Is this strange or what? Now, they, of course, modern archaeologists, Egyptians, say that, the Great Pyramid was built by Khufu 4,000 years ago or whatever. And yet the Egyptians of that era wrote on every wall and structure they built. Why not on that? And if it was supposed to be a tomb, where's the mummy, and so on and so forth? You know what I mean?
Well, here you want to know the actual. Well, here's part of the reason for that. That the guy who was one of the people who could understand hieroglyphics and everything like that was sent from France. He was a French archaeologist, and he was told to not find anything older than a certain date.
Okay, let me plan this out.
Well, no, I mean, that was it. That if you caused... You see, this is the problem that we have. If you think about it, it was the UFO effect of the 1800s, okay? Because of the fact that if you could prove that there was a civilization that was both antediluvian and post-diluvian, in other words, Great Flood, that it hadn't disappeared, then the Bible was wrong. And so, therefore, they didn't want to do that. And so everything was compressed, history-wise, because of the fact that they thought that if you took away from people that belief that they've held their whole life, and not, because obviously they attribute that to people taking the letter of the law of the Bible. I think that a lot of people don't do that anymore. They look for the spirit of it. But basically back then, that wasn't true. And so, therefore, to say that societies made it through the Great Flood, like if you have Göbekli Tepe, and you have things like the Great Pyramids, and and you can prove that
I think exceed 12,000 years old.
Oh sure. Well, the thing that I find interesting, knowing that again, the oldest, according to archaeologists on Monday, the oldest people lived in Ireland until 13,000 years ago, and then on Tuesday it was 33,000 years ago because they found one bone.
Yeah, it's much
And
farther
so-
back than they know.
Right, and so all of a sudden that changes, and how many people will know that?
Mhm.
And I
know.
think that
If you don't know.
right. Well, so this is the thing with UFOs, that if you say that aliens have been around for a long time, or if aliens exist, I mean, this is the thing that the government dances around with disclosure. Well,
Oh
it
my
could be this, could be that,
gosh.
could be that.
Yeah.
Right. But if you said, no, aliens are real, then at that point in time, I think a lot of religions have now sort of gotten a back way out to say God would love anything created on a planet, blah, blah, blah. That's all great. But, the Bible says is that we are the chosen people. Now, if we are the chosen people and something else shows up from outer space with a greater technology from us, that would be, to a lot of people, that's a demonic entity by the very nature of what it is.
A lot of what I think is just misinterpretation. Of course, that the stories have been around so long. The chosen ones may not exactly mean the kind of chosen ones that they claim the chosen ones mean. There's supposed to be 144,000 chosen ones, for instance. Well, maybe
Different
these are the
tribes.
people. Maybe these are the people who are getting informed.
Well, you know what? And as
that-
far as the Bible goes, I think that it's been perverted. There's been things omitted and things added
Yeah.
due to the will of man. And,
Oh,
I'm not,
gotcha.
trying to say, oh, Catholic Church is so great, but they have talked a couple years past about redeciphering the Bible and making it pure and whole. So hear the whole truth instead of the whole omitting and adding thing. So I'm intrigued to see what that's all about, but at the same
Sure.
time, I don't know. I think
Well,
things
then
are
they'd have
so...
to, really, seriously, it would have to add the book of Enoch, for instance.
Yeah, there's so many
And
different
who would be
scripts
happy
that are
with
coming up all the time. There's the Pearl of Great Price, Doctrine and Covenants. There's so many scripts in Egypt being pulled up all the time, being found.
Yep.
These are things that we need to read and we need to learn from because history does repeat itself, and there's things that have been happening throughout lifetimes. We've gone so far, so many times, basically destroyed ourselves, I think. So we need to learn
Right.
from that and not do it again.
Yeah, I think you're right in the fact that we get to a certain point and then spark ourselves out. That has happened more than once. I believe that. That
According
there's been-
to First Nations people, it's happened a few times, like 4 times, I think, in the
Mhm.
past.
Yep.
Yeah, and so this is our last chance. Hopefully we're ascending and we'll evolve enough to where, because I think, basically wiping the board slate clean, let's start
Mhm.
over again. The humans can get it right this time,
Yeah.
I think that's part of it, because it cannot unleash us on the universe yet. Obviously, we're not ready for that.
No.
Well, do you,
And I
let
would
me ask
think-
you a question about that then. What do you think that Sasquatch would feel about us going to Mars?
Oh,
Came from
I think
there.
that's a little concern to them. I think they probably think that it's too soon. We're not technologically advanced enough to make a trip like that. That's what I think. But I think their concerns are a little bit more on the line of helping with this reveal. They're connected with ET. I know they are, and that's what this is all about. I know it is. They wouldn't have guided me to all this stuff for nothing, and it's been very interesting and fun to do this. But yeah, that's my thought. I'm pretty sure ET probably thinks the same thing. You guys are going to Mars with what, a roller skate? Roller skates? Good luck.
Yeah, but I think that the part of the interesting thing about it is, and this is sort of a theory of a lot of different folks, I guess, is that once we become a force outwit our own planet, then what kind of an influence would we have on others of life? so therefore, would you believe this is the idea that we are being observed by these creatures, both ET, Sasquatch? Sometimes people say that they've actually seen Sasquatch on UFOs and things like that, whenever they're abductees. But
yeah, being walked on UFOs.
Yeah.
I saw one. I know a person who saw one when she was a kid. She was a little girl, and she was with her father, and they watched one. She was down in Arizona, living in Arizona, and it landed on a mountain behind their house. And they went out and looked, and saw a Sasquatch walk out of it. And her father, she said, said to her, "Don't ever forget this. This is very important."
Mm-hmm.
Like you would. I mean, that's a pretty bizarre occurrence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. The only thing that I'll say, I don't want to step on you there, Tessa, but
Oh,
I would say that the Lyndon Moulton Howe story of the Sasquatch coming out of the following the little aliens out of the thing happened supposedly 7 miles away from my house.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
and you see, this is the thing that I'm saying, Russell. I mean, we're right in the nexus of it. This idea that Sasquatch came out of, was beamed down from a UFO. It was observed by somebody that was a Snohomish County, I believe it was Snohomish County Sheriff's officer, who was the person who was retired. So he's a credible enough guy. And this is not, it's not. It's one of those things. And then people say to me, "Well, what do you mean weird stuff happens in the woods by your house?" I mean, it's like, what do you want me to say?
You want me to go into detail? I have several different accounts. This could take days. But it's funny because, okay, you see a Sasquatch walking off or being beamed down from a UFO. What about humans? It happens to us all the time. Just because they're Sasquatch doesn't mean they can't be abducted too, so they could be in league or it could be an abduction. They could... Go ahead.
I'm not exactly sure of the relationship, but I bet they're working together. So, that they're on one team, and I'm on that team. So on the team there's Sasquatch, there's ET, and there's me. And some of my friends.
Well, as far as Mars goes, I think we may have on Mars. The fissure is on Mars, the big one, I believe, is from a nuclear weapon, and then, the grounds have been tested, and the nuclear anomalies in the ground are higher than what the sun or anything else would out. So, to me, it proves what I believed all along. How do I even know this stuff? This is just what comes to my mind. It's pretty interesting. So, I think we already destroyed one world, now we're working on another one, but there are so many different ones out there. Will they...
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that Scar Canyon on Mars, if you look at it, it kind of looks like an electrical thing.
Yeah, it's like a laser thing, but at the same time, does it have nuclear properties? I don't know. For some reason, I always thought it was nuclear, but laser from the air.
Yeah, something like that. It looks like a lightning bolt hit it. If you look at it from space and look at the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty. Wait, speaking about that, our mutual friend Jill Smith has a campsite that she was guided to, and the way she found out that it was for her, she went to look at this private campsite, thinking about possibly buying it, and as she's on the property, 2 Sasquatch walk right through it, like 30 feet away from her, and don't even look at it. They just walk right by. And
Yeah, see, they were being passive aggressive.
Well, they were showing her, we want you to buy this place. I know it.
No, but every girl likes a bad boy.
Yeah, but this was a girl. So anyway, yeah, and I've been there, a few times, and every single time I've gone there, I've experienced some strange anomalous stuff. Seen UFOs. Saw like a rainbow thing against the trees one time, just like a rainbow light for no reason. Of course, the Sasquatch have come and called, and possibly every time I've been there, I've heard them off in the distance. They call, and we've seen in fact, the fun of that once in a while, just a little friendly rush of adrenaline. It's fun, when something happens that you don't expect. And I told someone that, and then I went to the campsite, and I'm sitting next to the picnic table, and out of nowhere, here comes this rock flying in, hits the picnic table at my feet.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, I get up and look, and I even have my IFR, my infrared camera on me. So I turn that on and look, and I don't see a thing. But I got a big rush out of it.
Indeed.
And then the next time I go there, I'm in a hammock. I had set my hammock up, and I'm in the afternoon. I did a little reading, and I'm sitting there reading, and then I decide to nap, and I start to drift off. And that time, I was listening to all the ducks and birds in the forest, and thinking, oh my gosh, that's sweet, Well, all of a sudden, this huge, or I should say, this loud goose calls from like 30 feet away, and it just, another rush, another huge rush. And of course, there's no goose there.
Yeah.
There was no goose over there.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I've been up in the hills and heard giant owls, calling across the river to each other and things like that. I mean, the funny. You gotta go.
No, I said pterodactyls.
Well, yeah,
the
thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds
thing is a different story. I'm not going to go.
Yeah, those are kind of seen down in the southwest, Arizona, Utah, somewhere.
Yeah, well,
sure.
I there was something massive that flew across me between the Oregon and the California border.
Oh,
but,
I know that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that Bigfoot oftentimes do other, in my opinion, creatures like birds to communicate, because and it's surprising to me whenever you're at a campground and you would think, okay, there's no way that they're going to let you know that they're there or whatever, they're going to communicate to each other, and yet they can do that all day long, and because people have no idea what nature sounds like, they don't even question it.
Oh, I know. I have been in a full campground, had them come and vocalize as barred owls, and people ignore.
Yeah. The type of where right next to your head, it's not long, I'm not saying that they'll carry strangely in the woods, because they do, but at the same time, they, it's just so weird that you can get these weird experiences that happen that make no sense whatsoever, and it sort of makes you wonder if, for example, what the heck just happened. A lot of times people say to me, why aren't you trying to document this better? Because, or what have you? It's because everything seems to be different.
Yeah, you can't. You have this adrenaline rush. You can't control your phone. You can't control your writing. Everything is just frizzled.
Right. Because I was up in here one time, and I was well, actually, it was funny. The park ranger came up to me and said, somebody's stealing money out of the place where you're supposed to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, there's only me, and I can't watch him by myself. Can you help me? Because she knew I used to do that kind of thing, observing things, and I said, yeah, no problem. So I went over to the other side of the thing, and I'm in there. It's middle of the night, and there several animals crawled across me. Small little scattery things, but then I had big, like a huh in one ear. In one ear, not both ears, just one ear, and it was like that. This thing would be close and massive, and I'm hearing these little things run around me and scurry across me and stuff. But at no time did I ever hear any kind of big, large animal that would have to be capable of doing that anywhere near me. So either somebody was being able to project voice, or they were next to me, and I could sense it in any which way.
I think they can do both. I really do. I've had one cloaked that ran right by me. I was hiking, and I felt this, I could feel it, this large animal. Well, that's what I heard, too, this approaching from the back left, over my back left shoulder. I heard it, and it came so quick, But my first thought was that it was an elk, because it's so big. Ran right past me, and I could feel the pressure in my face change, but I couldn't see a dang thing.
Yeah.
And it exited right and on the right side in front of me, on an angle, off the road. I stood there for about 2 minutes, still, trying to listen. I have a feeling he's just standing right there, kind of under his breath watching me,
Well, it's so interesting what they could do, but you guys, we do have to go to our second. We are a little late, but we have Mr. Dan Medina, who is originally from Gravity, and he's going to sing I Won't Let You Go. We have Mr. Fred Johnson III again with After Dark, as well as Gravity with My Last Goodbye, and Prime Example with Power Play. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
Things come and said, streets of these are going to dead end. Listening to waves on windy days, standing by the wall, making sense of it all. So alone in the dark, all alone in the dark. All alone in the dark, you're alone in the dark. 'Cause I won't let you go. You're so far away, always with my soul. I won't let you go. Oh, you're so far away, always with me in my soul. Yeah, yeah. Looking for a reason, not a lead. Mystified, lives inside a world, selling us all. Oh, she's alone in the dark, all alone in the dark, all alone in the dark, so alone in the dark. 'Cause I won't let you go. I won't let you go. You're so far away, always with me in my soul. Yeah, yeah. And I won't let you go. I don't know why I can't control this absurd again. Yeah, living at the dark, I search lonely things to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say, changes in the stuff, murder forever after. No matter what I say, after dark. Feeling ran to repugnant and fear. Hiding place with days of December. Concerning works published in the image. It doesn't matter what I say. It really doesn't. No matter what I say, after dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuits. No matter what I say, shades in the stuff, murder forever after. It doesn't matter what I say. Rude and fatal, lacking the hint of conscience. No matter what I say, after dark.
lifetime was a man in the hood. Tricked, misguided, and misunderstood. Till one day he cried out, Lord, save me. Teach me the lessons of life, won't you raise me? Because I tried everything under my hat, and I found all my plans were tears in the right. I need a hero, a real life camaraderie, to step in, to see me, and deliver a power play. Something to raise my head from the dust. It's a must. I find someone in whom I can trust. I must grow in knowledge, live what I learn. I'm so glad to meet you. Yo, my name is Vernon. Lead me any way that you're willing, and I'll share. I need your power play. To the front and all past behind. Memories of things you did so absurd. Came to the curb, now heard the word. Cause often we're low now. Problems make right us, but with power from God, yeah, we all stay victorious. Listen to the seed, the knowledge, and digest the rhythm. Because a trooper like Jay keeps it righteous. And express a prime example of a vocalist, adjust your bubble. Leroy is like dangerous trouble. Trouble if you want it, peace if you with it. Never before known of a man who can stand it, but so irrelevant. So kick it in if you will, Lord, and I'll shield. I need your power play. Yeah, becomes another one. And now you're not guessing. When power meets the darkness, the devil's got you go. Let's mock that weasel, and now he's going loco. If you got a problem, God can solve it. Power from the churro, and you're in his outfit. Why must the fit stay dirty so filthy? Get off your rear and whitewash the pickings. Power for cleansing, power for sanitizing, power for us, power for the rising of the sun. Cause in your darkest hour, you can look up and express to feel the power up. I need your power play. Yeah. Comes another one.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have Mr. Russell Wiitala, and we're talking about his book, Sasquatch Shaman in the Woods. And it's been pretty interesting. And then we have one of my favorite people, Mr. Kevin Ian Beegle, and he used to be a host on the show, and I'm so excited, beyond excited that he's here because I've missed him so much. Welcome back, you guys, and thanks so much for hanging out tonight.
You're like the sweetest person ever.
Oh, I really have missed you, Kevin. Like, I don't know. I've always been attached to you. Then we met, and then, you know, stuff happens in life. I'm not going to bring up any sore stuff, but I don't know. I'm so grateful that you're here, and that you said yes, because I was like, he's going to say no, and other stuff going on, but you're like, hell yes, I'm down. So I was so excited.
Yeah. Well,
I think Kevin adds a lot to this program, too. He's me a lot.
Yeah, I love him.
Well, you know, one of the things that I had a death in the family, and that was what it was, and I just needed to take a while and deal with that in a way people do. So, unfortunately, a lot of people have had that experience lately. I feel for you folks out there if you've had that happen to you, and It does seem to get better, and I will say I honestly believe at this point in time I do believe that people try to contact you from beyond the grave, but that's my experience.
Have you experiences like since you?
Yeah, one thing that I'll say is that my mom was a very, very interesting person, and it's odd that I've been dealing with trying to get rid of a lot of her different effects lately. And what I'll say is interesting is the little things that she used to write in different things. Mm-hmm. Almost like she could tell it was coming. Or the aspect of the fact that she, although portrayed herself to be a very, very interesting follower of modern thinking. She definitely did druidic sort of things. She had there's a theory of what's called an Irish curse, or a protection spell that some witches do, and I found something that she wrote on the back of a religious item that was basically this standard sort of protection spell, and I was blown away by it, to be honest with you. I didn't think that was. I guess you look at the thing, you grow up with a woman, and then you realize, man, I didn't even know half of it,
right?
And then whenever I felt like she came to me one night, again, it was one of those experiences like what Russell had. Was very tangible. Mm-hmm. In most dreams you can't tell. I mean, at least most dreams that I have, they don't follow kind of a sequence. They seem to go from here to there to all over the place.
Yeah, bounce around.
And then, this was very, very sort of in one direct, very linear, and I had a sensation of touch in it, and it was just weird because I'd never had that before. So it was a very strange thing. So I mean, like I said, if anything, I have been aware of the fact that my mom. I always said to my mom, I said, if the afterlife exists, and you are a spirit or energy or whatever we turn into afterwards, it doesn't really matter what it is. You know what I mean? A lot of people have an idea of what the afterlife is. Whatever it is, can you try to manifest in some way that'll confirm it to me? And I believe she did. So
that's
I was
awesome.
over the moon about that. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm so glad she did.
Yeah, I had similar things happen with me too. I dreamt of my mom on Mother's Day this year.
Oh.
I woke up and I hadn't for a long time, and I woke up and I thought, wow, what about Mom last night? And then I realized it was Mother's Day.
Isn't that crazy? I had one like that too. Yeah. I think I was 16. I might have been 17, but I had a dream. At this time, I was working in the Model Cafe in Ozark, Arkansas, and I'm waiting tables, and I'm walking to a table, and I see my dad, and he's got this shit-eating grin on his face, just smiling at me, than I've ever seen him in the longest time. And then I go to the table, and all of a sudden, I see my mom there, and I couldn't see anything. All I could do was, because I was just so happy to see her, and it had been so long. Last time I saw her in a dream was shortly after she passed away. So it's crazy, like you'd think you'd be able to dream about these people anytime you want to, but they only come at times. But I woke up, I was crying, and then I realized it was Mother's Day, so I did go and see her that day, and I think that's the day I realized that her and my father later on would come as monarch butterflies, because she did arrive that day at graveside. But it was so interesting and intriguing how all this kind of lines up. They do come to let you know everything's okay, and it's not when exactly you want it, but it's kind of when you need it.
I am absolutely a believer that death is an illusion. Now
we live forever as energy.
Talking about ghosts, I've seen them. I've seen them at the Playhouse. The first incident was we call him Oscar. He cleared his throat behind me, and I turned around and looked. There was nobody there. there was another guy in the building with me, but he was way in the back because I called to him to make sure that he wasn't right, there, and he wasn't. And then I walked straight out of the front door and looked both ways, and of course, it's the end of town. It's kind of the quiet end of town, and there was nothing there. So, man, a lot happened at that place over the years. It was all spread out, but in recent times, it's very active now, extremely active. We've got EVPs from it. One girl said she was 12 years old when she drowned in the river right out there and just drifted into the building. There's a doctor who committed suicide in 1911. And then there's the brother of that girl, I think. Their brother and sister drowned at the same time. And we actually have a possible
I
picture
think one was
two.
probably trying to see ghosts that we encountered.
Yeah.
Little Billy and his little sister. She was drowning. He jumped in to save her, and he couldn't swim either, so they both drowned.
Yeah. That's really sad.
Yeah.
There was another incident. This is what makes me wonder about ghosts, and I really think I've come to the conclusion that a lot of our consciousness is not in our brains. Our brains are kind of like computers and can calculate to a certain degree, but this ghost learned a new word, and the word was s'mores. He committed suicide in 1911. That word did not exist back then, but I had written a play with that word in it, and it was about camping, and we were rehearsing that play when I heard very distinctly the word s'mores come out of one of the speakers. It came out of a speaker, and of course, there was nothing hooked up or turned on, and it was like clear as bell. When I heard it, I looked up at the stage to see if anybody else heard it, but none of the kids did. They were just, doing their thing up there, going through the scene. But one time in the middle of that scene, or that play, in the middle of the scene and play, had a kid kind of a half circle on all these logs or stumps. They're sitting on these short little rounds, wood rounds. That's the right word. And it was back in the corner, and I had detected him the night before, and kind of even turned and looked and smiled, even though I couldn't see him. I was there, and I was letting him, hey, I'll let you back there. Don't cause any disruption. Well, the next night he did. The next night, I gave notes and then walked real fast back to my chair, which is near where he was standing, ran out, and it spooked him. Yeah, I'm there. Anyway, he ran down the middle of the aisle, and I saw one of the sensitive girls. She saw him and was watching him coming up the aisle and around the back of her, and just next to this other kid, and he kind of stuck his head between the two of them and mugged at me, like, ha ha, and then he ran off stage left. And, of course, that, everything just went to hell. 4 of us saw him, could see him. The other 8 that were there could not see him. 2 of the youngest kids, which surprised me, they stopped. They didn't know what was going on. They just froze right in place and just there through the whole incident. I managed to get the kids calmed down to continue rehearsal, which is crazy. And then I saw him again. He was off stage left still, and there was another kid there that was super sensitive, and he could see everything. He says, he's got a cabbie hat on, got a tweed jacket, and he's got slacks. Well, I saw a little of the lapel of the jacket, and I saw the slacks. And, of course, we all could hear him when he was running around. Boom, 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 boom. So when we saw him the second night, I went up to get him, and when I got too close to him or something, he spooked and ran back towards the dressing rooms. And to my surprise, 3 of the kids stood up and ran after him. They wanted to find out where he went.
Hey, come back! Don't be
I know.
We're just kids.
We're not afraid of him. He's just trying to get our attention.
Yeah, kids are good at picking up on energies. People that are good and bad. Mm-hmm.
3 of those kids went off chasing him, and when they came back, I was with the other ones. And some of them weren't taking it so well. And they came back, and I asked them, so did you find him? And yeah, he was up in the costume loft in the corner. And that's another place where it gets out there. We're moving out to a house. And did a little ghost hunt and took some divining rods. And I held the divining rod. I'd never done this before. And she asked questions, like to the girl, asked her questions, do you want to cross over? No. Do you want to go with us? Do you want to stay here? And she was cross over. Oscar wasn't sure. He couldn't answer. He was very confused. And I know, holding those rods is crazy when you ask a question and they toss. Which meant yes. And anyway, plus the EVP. Another ghost group came in. We've had many ghost groups come in. 4, maybe more, come in and look. Actually, 5 if you want to count the local one.
Right.
And they got an EVP one night that said he tried to kid me.
He tried to kid?
I don't know. And it was a lady's voice. I didn't recognize her because I believe I'm one of the ghosts that is there, and her name's Wilma, and it wasn't her voice. Because one of the sensitives says, look, there's 3 people standing right there. There's a little girl, and she says she's Polish. And then there's this costume person, and then there's Oscar. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And I thought, well, who could be costumes? And I asked one of the old-timers. She said Wilma. That's the only person I can think of. So anyway, there's several entities there. And I managed to learn a word. How could do that unless consciousness is electromagnetic in some sense, in some way.
Yeah, and it's funny. Okay, so brave Sir Robin in the chat room, and I just want to say, side note, if you guys hear a cricket, it's not because I'm playing a soundtrack because it's boring, because it's not to me. There's a cricket right outside my window that's going off. So if you hear it, it's not a soundtrack. That's a real cricket. But brave Sir Robin was saying...
Is that a cricket or a cicada?
It's a cricket.
Okay.
Yeah. But brave Sir Robin said I would never use those, aka divining rods, what I call dowsing rods. He said he's heard too many bad things can happen, but just like with anything else, like Ouija boards or any other tool you're going to use to communicate to the other side, you have to use intention. You have to take steps to protect yourself and close out these sessions and let these things know that they cannot attach to you and do certain things along that. Do you think they're dangerous? I don't. I love dowsing rods or divining rods.
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point, and I think perhaps potentially I don't worry about myself because like I said earlier, I'm protected. The Sasquatch metaphysically are protecting me. So even when I heard those things in my home here recently, through this whatever happened here this last week. I wasn't worried about it. I knew, that I wasn't going to be touched and hurt. But a friend of mine claims she was attacked here recently during this period, metaphysically attacked by some sort of entities. And so what I did was I prayed and asked for protection for her. So hopefully she's got that now.
Well, it is interesting about divining rods and dowsing rods, and what they were originally used for. Obviously, people use them to find wells. On my dad's side of the family, who's Pennsylvania Dutch, they used it. There were several dowsers in our family that could find a well using dowsing rods. And you would think they were actually called water witches, and it would seem like not. I mean, this is coming from a family of very, very fundamental Christians, very, very fundamental Christians, and you would think that using the word witch to describe somebody who was doing anything,
the witch,
yeah, would be weird. But then I found. Something they used to have a little book of protective spells. They called like the little helper, or the little helper, or the helpful thing. But you
Ma's
can Google
little helper,
it,
or something like that.
yeah, and you can see what it is. And some of them were, just basically to make sure that your cows were protected, and all these different things. And some of them were, to befuddle the devil. Basically you'd say this rhyme so that so that the devil couldn't find you or whatever. And so
it's like finding or putting them in a box with mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck with that.
but what I found was so interesting about it is that I would have never, ever imagined it. And then, so apparently they used to have these little meetings of these Pennsylvania Dutch people where they would go to quote unquote powwows and discuss
Deutschland powwows.
And then but they weren't meaning it in a native way. What they were using it as was as a cover word for these sort of magical things.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because like my granny taught me. She didn't teach me with copper rods. She taught me with apple sticks or hickory sticks or different other sticks. You know, you got a little Y, and once it started going, you know, you hit water. I didn't ever witness copper rods until I went to Las Vegas, and this was in 2014, I believe. And oh my gosh, the power that came through those was amazing, and I've been able to communicate with things and find out so many different things through them. That was my very first paranormal tool in my toolbox, which I have many tools now, but that was my very first and most favorite.
So you're pretty recent, a lot of this then.
Well, paranormal throughout my whole life, but as far as coming out of the paranormal closet and not being afraid of people judging me anymore, yes, it's been 2012 is when I came out and didn't care anymore. But before then, it's been my whole life.
Well, you know what I think is happening with those dowsing rods is, see, water is a semiconductor. So, and whether it's you know, subconsciously or physically, seriously physically, I think it can be with copper rods, possible. It's affecting those rods in your hand. You're
even
detecting
quartz.
That semiconductor underneath the water, or the ground, I mean.
Yeah.
Well, copper was and is a sacred element to a lot of people, you know, a lot of cultures, and you know, a lot of times people they don't really realize that. You know, some of the times when people talk about Sasquatch, they also talk about the Green Man as a thing about that. But just like in America, whenever people used to take gold dust and rub it on the emperor, they used to rub gold dust. They used to rub copper dust on to themselves in Celtic societies, and you could see, and that's what would actually mix with your sweat and turn you green. You were literally the Green Man. You were the Green Man.
I am Groot.
Exactly. I'm saying that from a lot of these different things, what we know about societies and things like that are often written by people who have no interest in telling the truth about it, right? Yeah, I mean, obviously, and as a historical thing, they have no interest in us knowing the truth. And so that's the funny thing that we go through, is that we all do this funny dance around where some people want to hide it, some people want to find out about it, and then somebody like, and what I find interesting about this story the most, Russell, is that at this point in time, it sounds to me like you are the person who's going to attempt to disclose this information. Now, a lot of people have claimed to do that, and are willing to do that kind of thing, to say this is what they want us to know and everything like that. But what I find interesting about it the most is you're not literally saying this is the way you've got to live your life.
It could
mean
you,
or are you?
Yeah, he's like, it could mean this, it could mean that. It's up to you to decipher it, right? Or whoever is looking at it.
You know, we all have free choice. I do believe,
free agency,
you know, in reincarnation now that we're here working off karma, you know, and trying to evolve. And there's some of us that are a little bit slower than others, might have to repeat, you know, have to live 30 lives instead of just 10 or so. You know what I mean? I do believe that. That's my personal belief, though. And to tell you the truth, it's just what I believe. That's most likely. I believe I've been reincarnated because of some things that happened. I had a premonition that I was going to meet somebody, for instance, and when I met her, she claimed to be reincarnated from ancient Egypt, and oh my gosh, I mean, that's a long story. I can't even get into that, really, but it's very, very amazing.
Yeah, when you have experiences like that, it really blows your mind. I had one like that about my husband. I knew I was going to meet him. I did. And I was like, it's totally out of, the realm of what I'd ever date, but 20 years now already. But it's weird how you get those perceptions, those messages.
Yes. And I had no idea why I was going to meet the young lady. But I think, she has knowledge, a lot of knowledge. She's very young, but she's very intelligent.
Also.
And I've, of what's going on in my life and where they've been guiding me to and stuff like that. And she is into Reiki, which, by the way,
Reiki.
That's Reiki, yes, and they're manipulating
energy.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, right? Electromagnetic fields.
Yeah.
I think that may be why. I think this is something they want me to look at too. Not that I'm going to become a Reiki practitioner or anything, but they want me to understand it and how.
You can participate. You don't have to practice it or be an instructor. Just witness it. Learn from it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I've been doing lately. I've been looking up YouTube sites and stuff and seeing what they do, and they got different methods that they do it. But I'm positive that it's all the same thing, and you'll see someone on YouTube put up their hand, and they're sending right through. Well, they're not really sending through the internet. What they are sending is through that counter space was talking about, the on-space, field, and that power through them. I did essentially the same thing, hopefully, when I sent that young lady here,
So
go ahead.
No. Most of the question was: so do you see yourself as sort of the perpetual student, then, Russell? Is that what you're trying? Is that really the role that you see yourself in?
Yes, student / teacher, because they teach me, and I try to spread it. I try to spread the information. So I think that's why I read them that I chose because nationality they could work, but I also received another message that I love. I want to share this. I received the message that I am a Sasquatch in human form, and to me, that is the best I've ever received in my life. I don't know what, but to me it all seems like well, they're my family.
Yeah.
They're brothers and sisters.
Well, it is interesting that you said it. Originally they were. I don't know. I can't remember now whether that was part of the radio program per se, or whether that was just me messing with you in the background. That you were part Denisovan, and what I said in the size of Denisovan. Well, they've only found one or two, bodies. That they were massive and had a huge brain capacity. I mean, a lot of times people don't even realize Neanderthal had a bigger brain pan than we have.
Yeah, they needed it with us.
Yeah.
But I do believe that when there was fires in Washington State, there were witnesses that said they saw nets with Sasquatch bodies in them being hauled away to where they were going with it. Like, they do exist, you know about it, they witnessed, but they're doing as usual.
Right, but my point of the matter is so we speculate that some people have telepathy, things. I would say I've experienced it with certain people, a telepathy. And it's a thing that the government has spent money on trying to figure out. Remote viewing is just sort of out-of-body experience if you want to break it down to the nuts and bolts of it. But what I'll say is that do you think that this larger brain capacity is, or that issue part of it does make them, and I'm going to put this in a delicate way, a superior being to Homo sapien.
Yeah. Well, I think in some ways they are, yes, highly evolved, more evolved than us. They have more compassion. But I think one of the reasons why is I believe they have a beehive brain. Just as they know where I'm at all times, they know. I mean, I have ran into them, in 4 different states, in 30 different plus areas they've come and interacted. So I know they keep tabs on me. They know where I'm at. And same with each other. They have this beehive brain. And so that increases their intelligence. They've done experiments where they've had people hooked to each other with electrodes, where one person just sits there and passively just sits there.
Osmosis.
And another person works the puzzle. And it turns out that people who are hooked to another person through these electrodes, they have a tendency to solve the puzzles easier.
So we have about 10 minutes before we're out, and I had a question about Sasquatch. We've heard about them being in league, perhaps with aliens. What do you think about them being in league with Fae? So here in Colorado, I had a lady contact me, and she said she moved into property, and she saw not only evidence of Bigfoot, but Fae. They had Bigfoot handprints and such in the dust on their vehicles. Yes. The Fae would go in and open the doors and tell them basically what to do. So the Fae was the brains, Bigfoot was the bronze, and they'd work together to get things accomplished on this property. Do you think that could be anywhere close to true?
Oh, it could be. I'm not sure, but I got to tell you that I'm pretty sure I've had Fae in my, couldn't see them, but I could hear them running around.
Mm-hmm.
I had guests here that could hear them running around. Can't see them. And I remember one night in particular, I got up. It was a hot day, so I wanted to cool off the house a little bit before I went to bed. So I opened my back sliding door about 6 inches, and then came back and watched TV for about an hour before I went to bed. Well, the first thing I did when I went to bed is I meditated. So I crawled in and I got all my, the gifts that they've given me, the crystal stones and, heart-shaped rocks and shaman stone and all that stuff. I put it on all my chakras and I just lay there and meditate. Well, I crawled into bed, I meditated, and I was meditating for about 10 minutes, and I jumped up on the bed, and suddenly I felt what felt like this meat elbow in the bottom of my foot. And it's instinctively, of course, I pulled my foot back. And it went out, whatever it was, went out the back of my bed, down, and exited that the sliding glass door before I could sit up and see what it was. And I didn't have my glasses on. I just got a glance of it. And my cat kind of acted like, she had that prey-predator instinct, so she jumped off the bed like she was going to chase it, but it was obvious to me that she didn't want to catch it, whatever it was.
She's like, what the hell is going on here, man?
Yeah, that was one incident. I had another one where I had my foot outside the covers, and I'm just kind of laying
I saw
there,
you send that message to Kevin. You're like, never sleep with your foot outside the covers.
Yeah. I thought it was my cat. I felt a pressure on my big toe. And then I realized my cat sucked up on my back, asleep. And to tell you the truth, I have this stuff happen so often. I'm just kind of relaxed about it, and I just thought, well, I don't want to deal with this right now. I just want to go back to sleep. So I pulled my foot back in under the covers and went back to sleep.
Yeah. And I'll say this just quick. I mean, I don't want to take away from Russ's story, but I definitely think, that Sasquatch and they work together. I believe that because I've seen footprints. I've seen footprints inside footprints that are little child-sized boots inside a Sasquatch print.
Oh, well, you know what? I got a picture of a boot that was on my bath mat. I forgot about that.
Little tiny one?
Running around my house. Huh?
Little tiny.
It's like it was kind of a sock boot that it had on. and the longest toe was in the middle.
Yeah, well,
On both sides.
I might be related.
A true Irishman would say that a Sasquatch is a fae. If you can say that if they have out of normal abilities, that a fae can be anything, any size, shape shift and change.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what form it takes. In other words, sometimes the form that it takes is dictated by your own mind.
Well, it's just like Vikings. Vikings are not a genetically processed person. Vikings is a status. So when you become a Viking, doesn't mean you're a certain DNA or genetic person.
Right. It's like
you're a person with a
shaman.
status. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So this happened to me in Oregon. I went down to, and you know Tobe Johnson and Aaron Jackson.
Yeah.
They had they had a podcast out of Cottage Grove, Oregon. So I went down to watch it live, and it was a fun show. But anyway, when I left there, my plan was to drive to Florence, Oregon, which is on the coast, kind of a straight shot over. But my map was horrible. Didn't have any of these small roads on it, and so I was just basically following the sun and going west. Well, I was going on these back roads. It was like 45 minutes and seeing two cars. You know, it was really isolated. And I was just thinking to myself, God, it's gorgeous here. Well, about 2 weeks before that, I'd had a thought because our mutual friend Joe Hauser had posted a picture of a bear with two cubs, and I was thinking, geez, it's been a while since I've seen a bear. I'd like to see a bear. I came around the corner on my way to Florence, and there's a yearling, and he's running towards me, and I'm going to hit the brakes because he's starting to cross the road. And so I hit the brakes, and he took a leap and disappeared in the middle of nowhere.
They're so fast. It's insane.
There was like a door there that I couldn't see. And I stopped and I looked and I sat there for 5 minutes thinking about this. And when I got home, I looked down at the chart of Nick Nelson had charted the regional vortex fields, and it was right on one of those demarcation lines.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
Well, dang it, you guys. I wish I had like 3 more hours to go, but down to 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Russell, where can our listeners find you, find your book, Sasquatch Shaman of the Woods, etc.?
Yeah, I do have a Facebook site for Shaman of the Woods. They can look on there. And my book, of course, is available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon, all the usual suspects. I don't know, what else to say. But, yeah, I guess that's about it.
Well, I've been looking on your page and stuff, trying to check you out and do my homework the best I can. But everyone that's bought it so far has had nothing but good things to say. And I just love hearing other people's experiences and stories. And I'm so glad that you felt free to share your experience with everyone else. Like, that's awesome.
And I just feel so thankful that you had me on. Thank you so much.
Well, okay, so that brings Kevin was the first person to reach out to you to do this show. Then you responded just recently, and so I felt kind of guilty, like, okay, so you're expecting to have Kevin on the show, and then Kevin's no longer with the show, so I was like, hey, you want to come in and, like, co-host? And I'm so grateful that you did, Kevin. It's been awesome. I've really enjoyed myself.
Oh, I had a great time. I did have a great time, and I do take a sarcastic view of the Sasquatch world on the Squatchable podcast every Saturday. It's not run by me, but I do try to stick up for the woo, and I get made fun of a lot, so that's okay.
So where can people find your podcast?
Well, it's not mine. It's actually by a British man named Richard Allen, and he, if you go to YouTube and type in Squatchable Podcast, then you'll see me looking at videos of Sasquatch and trying to defend people who, and like I said, I've had some weird experiences, and they give me crap for that, and I stick them for myself, and I believe over the year that I have been doing just the Saturday program, that they have some more respect for the woo side of it, because the woo side is science.
Woo.
Yes, it is.
Indeed.
It's explainable.
Yes.
And as one thing I was to wrap up for Russell, whenever I have a degree in finance, and I used to study a lot of different statistics, and they used to say to me in the class, if you want a theory, ask a scientist. If you want proof, ask a mathematician.
Yeah, like I said before, I understood there'd be no math, but I want to thank you, Mr. Russell Wiitala and Mr. Kevin Ian Beegle.
Math a lot.
Yes, I know. It really scares the shit out of me, I'm just kidding. Fun to love it once I finally got to realize how it worked. I really love to use it.
You naturally do it, and you don't even know. I can tell you that I've met you, Tessa. You are a mathematician, and you are unsure of the fact that it is. But if the way that you look at the way that you look at it, you are naturally doing it. Any spiritual person is doing it.
Yeah, it was. It only took to my junior year when I met a person that first time he explained it to me, I got it. After that, it was on. I loved it. But thank you guys again for coming on. You guys are amazing, and thanks for sharing with our listeners.
That was fun.
Well, nighty night. Love and light.